Hi, everybody. We are back for our second part to this episode with my friend today, Mr. Michael Head from Mass Communications. My name is Dr. Yasmine Flores. And so we were talking about Film Club.
Yes.
We talked about the presentation that you all put on with all the student videos, etc., at the end of each semester. Is that
Yes.
right? Fall and spring?
We traditionally have done just the Tejano Film Festival in the spring. Last fall, we did for the first time a Halloween short film festival. It was up in the Black Box
Nice.
Theater.
Uh-huh.
Just students very quickly put together some kind of psychological horror type films, and some of them turned out really impressive.
Oh, wow.
What the students are able to do with what they have is pretty remarkable, and the creativity they express.
So let me ask you a question about these films. So if somebody's taking in the club, right? Somebody's in the club, or they're in the video production class and the audio, what kind of cameras are they using?
The production cameras we have in the classes are Sony camcorders. I don't remember the exact model. I think it's PZ70s. I could be off on the model number, but they're Sony camcorders. They're very good cameras. They're very effective cameras. We also have Canon DSLRs. Some students choose to shoot on those. They're the kind of cameras you traditionally think of as photo cameras, but they take really good video as well.
Oh, wow.
So there's some advantages to that. There's some drawbacks to that. Audio can be a little bit harder. The camcorder is a little more all-in-one. But the way the image is processed is a little bit different for both of them. So those are the primary cameras we have right now.
So when you're using a camcorder, and explain this to me because I'm a total novice. When I think of a camcorder, is this the one where the little side, it opens up and you can see what
Yes.
you're doing?
Yes.
Okay. And so there's a built-in microphone. Do you ever add a new microphone into that?
Yes, the
Okay.
cameras we have, if you picture them, you hold them like this, and there's a strap on this side. There's a monitor that opens up on the side, and there's controls. The cameras that we have, we usually include two different microphones with them, a shotgun microphone that's more directional that'll go on camera. We also have one lav mic that we can use with the camera as well. So that way students can put a lav mic on someone and get much better audio quality, because as a music person, you know audio quality is massively important. And for video, I'm a lighting guy. I like to make the pictures look pretty. No matter how pretty the pictures are, if the sound is bad, nobody's going to want to watch.
Right. And so is this a lav mic?
This is a type of lav mic, yes.
Okay. All
These
right.
little attached lavalier microphones.
Lavalier. Okay, I've heard that term. Okay, I was like, I don't know what he means by lav. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, now, and speaking of microphones, so let's talk about a boom mic. Because sometimes I see them on the news, right, when they're getting ready with the reporter. And is the delay on a news show, is it just tradition now to just stand there and wait?
It could be. Well, what people kind of forget sometimes, and I'm going on my knowledge. I have a friend that he works for KFOX. He could actually tell you a lot more information about that.
Yeah.
News cameras, they tend to be really, really large. Like even today, like we have, technically your phone can shoot really good 4K footage. And to a point, some people are using that for big productions and whatnot.
Sure.
News cameras are generally these rather large broadcast cameras that really haven't changed in form factor for decades. They've been that way. They're just big. Part of that is the quality of the image they're capturing, which they do capture really good images because it's going on a broadcast. Part of it is a sensor. Part of it is just the inner workings and how they process the image. But they tend to be really, really large. A boom microphone, well, you mentioned about the audio, the delay. Usually that's a remote signal, and so going back and forth, because what you have to remember is when you're doing a live interaction with somebody that's remote, we're used to Zoom now where it's just instantaneous over high-speed internet, but those are wireless transmitters. And again, I'm going from my knowledge. Somebody could be looking at this and being like, what the heck is he talking about? I'm a film guy. But there's the delay of the signal going there. There's the delay of them processing what they're hearing and then recording it and going back. So there is actually two-way delay as they're communicating with the people like live in the studio. It's gotten to, in my opinion, it's gotten less, but there is that moment where they're actually going to be switching to going to camera, and then they have to get word from the producer or the director, you're on. So there is a little bit of that action going on too.
Sometimes I think they just don't hear them.
And that's a possibility too. If you're in a noisy environment, they might have an earpiece in, but at the same time, if it's noisy, you might not be able to hear the cue right away.
Right. Yes, because sometimes, I am watching the news and I'm sitting and going, well, that person's just standing there, awkwardly.
And occasionally there's the weirdness where they don't get a signal at all, and they're waiting. They're just sitting there waiting, and they don't hear a cue to say you're on.
Right.
And that's usually when the anchor's like you're on, and we're having technical problems. So they're pretty quick about picking up on that too.
Yeah, sometimes they are. Yes.
Yeah, that's true.
How funny. And so the boom mic is, speaking of the boom mic, going back to that, is that because what is the fuzzy covering?
The fuzzy covering. Well, let's start with the pole. There's the pole that the boom operator holds.
Okay.
That's usually, it extends out different lengths. At the end of that is the boom microphone. The shotgun microphone, a lavalier microphone, it's very, very small. And it's a unidirectional microphone. It picks up any direction at all. We could put it in different positions. I've laved people, especially with longer hair, you can put a lav mic on their ear and get really good sound quality that way. A boom microphone is usually a shotgun microphone, which is a long tube that has cutouts on the side, and I have to do this with my students too. There's physics involved because those cutouts on the side, they reduce incoming sound from the side.
Okay.
So it's called a shotgun microphone because the pickup pattern is like a narrow spread in front of the microphone. So think of what picture think of as firing a shotgun. It spreads out that way.
Okay.
Now the covering, they put a cover on that. That's usually they do it outside for wind, and they put a fuzzy covering on it. I had to explain this to my students the other day too. The colloquial term for that is a dead cat.
Oh, okay.
That's just what it's. I'm sure there's a more technical term for it, but the general colloquial term is a dead cat.
Okay.
And all it does is it reduces the sound of wind going across the microphone, because I'm sure you might have heard, like in some videos, somebody's talking and it sounds like that sound. That's the sound of the wind hitting the microphone.
Okay.
So it reduces that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Although I do get mics from an Australian company, and they sell what they call a dead wombat. So.
What?
Same idea.
Okay.
It's a soft fur covering. They're all synthetic now, but it's a covering for the microphone to reduce wind noise.
Got it. Okay, that's fascinating. And the boom mics are also multi-directional?
No, that's the shotgun.
Oh, okay,
that's the shotgun microphone.
Okay, got it.
And so, that's why when they boom that over somebody, they're going to be pointing it. They're going to try to point it right at the upper chest, bottom of the chin area, because it picks up that sound in that direction.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. But you're right. They do try to really aim for a center spot.
And they try to get as close to the person as possible. So that's actually a hard job. If you ever hold something above your head for 10 minutes at a time, that's a hard job.
That person must be pretty strong, I would imagine.
Yeah. I had one friend that was a boom operator in Dallas. He was a ninja. I mean, I never heard him like move around, but we'd be ready to roll, and suddenly it'd be like, well, where's the boom op? And I look up and he's like on a bench in the corner, like, we're ready.
Right. Did you get that? Right. How funny.
He's a great guy, though.
That's hilarious. Guy. So tell me about some of your personal projects, because you're always working on a million things.
I am.
And I mean, maybe we should have started the whole episode with that, because that's usually, I remember the first episode you and I did together, which was that a year ago?
I think it was more than, was it before COVID?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No, this has been since the middle of COVID, actually.
Okay,
yeah, it's when I started. My first episode was with Ted Carver. And so now, so you have started, you work with a production company in town.
I work with several in town.
Oh, wow. Fancy feast.
And I like doing that. I like working with a variety of people, because I'm always of the opinion a rising tide lifts all boats. So I always recommend build good relationships with everybody, and then you can step in with different people in different roles and help everybody out. And then if you need help, you have different people to call on at the same time. Right.
That's beautiful. And so, and what are some of the projects you're working on this year?
I have multiple. Oh, do I want to talk about that one or not? Yeah, I got to. A a friendship that I've developed really strongly over the past year and a half, even more than that, about 5 years now, actually. That's weird to think it's 5 years now. A friend of mine, he loves Ghostbusters.
Okay.
And he was actually part of a Ghostbuster fan film that shot in Colorado back in 2016.
Okay.
But it got delayed.
Okay.
It got kind of just, they had done some work on it, but then it got stopped and nobody was working on it. We've been trying to get that finished up for this year, and we're really close to getting it done. I'm going in on nights and evenings and losing some sleep to try and get that done. And we're also working on some different short films that we are doing with a team of Ghostbusters stationed here in Texas. It's the Ghostbusters Texas Regional Response Team, GBTX Texas RRT. So that's one of the things, and that's just that's a fun thing. It's a great thing.
And what does this team do exactly?
Well, we do the short films, and it's actually a tribute because he's an Army veteran. One of his friends that was in the Army with him, they had talked about doing it for a long time, and his friend unexpectedly passed away at a very young age.
Oh, wow.
And so he's honoring his friend by saying, we're going to continue and do this forward. And his name's Aaron Mutter. He's a great guy. His ability to build props, like the packs.
Oh, yeah.
He has like 12 of them that he has put together himself, and they are gorgeous. They are amazing.
Wow.
But they also do a lot of charity work. Like,
interesting.
We're going to be, I know he's going to be, I'm trying to see if I can get there. There's a Comic-Con that one of the high schools puts on.
Okay.
April 1st, I think it is.
Okay.
I could be wrong on the date on that. But they're going to show up to that. They do charity work, like they march in the Thanksgiving Day parade. I think they've done hospital visits before just to be there and show up in costume. And whenever we're going around, he has, I kid you not, he has 2 Jeeps that he has made into Ghostbuster vehicles.
Oh my gosh.
So it has all the stuff on top, everything around.
Wow.
They're awesome. And we'll be going somewhere and everybody will stop and want to take pictures. And he's such a nice guy that he'll be like, people will be like, do we have to pay anything? He's like, no, just take a picture. Take all you want. He's such a nice guy.
Oh, so that's awesome.
That's a lot of fun. I have a couple of other, this one I really can't say much about. We have one of the companies I work with, we have a rather big thing that's going on behind the scenes. We just can't say much about it right now.
Okay.
It might be huge, might not be.
Okay.
We're waiting on some meetings right now. That's all I can say about that.
How cool. And then and so what is your role in a lot of these productions? Are you behind the camera? Are you the boom mic?
I tend to be behind the camera. My job, often I'm a director. I'm in the Ghostbuster thing. I'm director. I'm also running camera. I'm running sound sometimes. We're finally getting some extra crew people that actually are some former EPCC students.
Nice.
That are doing great.
Wonderful.
That's been a huge lifesaver because,
yeah,
like I said, filmmaking is a team sport.
Right.
And it's sometimes hard to find the team, but when you get the right team together, things go fantastic.
Absolutely.
I like the directing. I like the cinematography, which is the lights and the camera. I've done sound before. I've done everything on a set. I've literally done everything from getting coffee to being in charge of everything. I've been a producer. Producer is an interesting role because their job is to help make everything happen. But like on set, they have very little to do if they've done their job well, because everything's already in place, and so they're sitting there basically waiting for a problem to happen so they can say, how do we solve this?
Got it. So, and I think I've talked to Ted Carver about this before. Let's talk about the roles, because so it starts with the producer.
Yes.
The producer is basically finds the financial backing.
Yes. The producer, let's say I have a script. Like, this is the person. I'll show it to a producer. The producer says, okay, I like this. We're going to get it made. First thing they're going to try and do is get funding. So they will find whatever source of funding they have, often for the role of an executive producer. That's the money man, basically. Executive producer.
Got it. Okay.
And the producer will go to somebody and say, we're getting money. That's the executive producer. Technically, that's the source of the funds.
Okay.
The producer will then say, I think this person will be a good director for it. And so they'll hire the director. They'll work with the director to say, who do we want to be the cinematographer, the director of photography, and they'll hire the person that they want to do the lighting and camera. And each of those departments has different people under them. If it's a period piece, if they need costumes, they'll work with the costume department to say, we're going to bring in this person to do costumes, and they're going to oversee all the costumes for everybody, makeup, special effects. And the producers, I got to meet with a producer in Los Angeles one time, and he described his own job as, I'm making sausage. Because his job is to just get it all together and get it crammed in there and make sure the final product is what it's supposed to be.
Oh, that's very
He's a great guy too, by the way.
Okay, awesome. So that's very interesting. So now you mentioned director, and obviously, so is the director also the person that does like blocking?
Usually, yes.
Okay.
They'll work with the actors to say where they're going to move around. And something that people often forget about film is the camera has blocking as well, because it's very rare that a camera is just sitting still on someone. In a film, the camera moves around a lot too, so that's something that has to be taken into account.
Right.
Because if you have a camera that's my film appreciation class just watched Touch of Evil.
Okay.
1953, Orson Welles.
Oh, wow.
The opening shot is about a 3-minute long continuous take that starts down low, and then the camera goes up over a building and across. So they have to find a way to safely get a cameraman onto basically a crane, lift them up and move them across.
Wow.
So that camera blocking is part of it as well.
How interesting. I didn't think about that. And Orson Welles is amazing.
Oh, yeah. Some of the stuff he does is incredible.
Right. So there's the executive producer, that's the money. Then maybe a producer that works under him, director who is telling everybody where.
There's also associate producers.
Okay.
They might have different roles, and that's kind of one of those weird kind of catch-all terms for different people that help put the production together. Like they might know somebody that specializes in a certain costume, and they might get an executive producer role for that.
Got it. Okay.
So, yeah.
And so then, as you said, the director would have to focus on period type things, such as if it's set in the 1700s.
To a point, yes.
Okay.
Mainly the director is kind of like the captain of the ship.
Okay.
He says, we're going this direction, this is the way we're going, but he also has to delegate and let the crew do their jobs.
Okay.
Like when they hire the director of photography, the person that's in charge of lighting and camera and whatnot, he has to be able to communicate with him and say, this is the look we're going for. And then trust the director of photography to get the look the way he wants. Same with costuming. He said, we're going for the 1700s. And so that is it's kind of like handed off to the costume department, who will then, they're the ones that will do the research and get the costumes. They'll come to the director for approval, and they'll say yes. And different types of productions have different roles. Like in television, the producer is a lot more influential than the director, if that makes sense.
I see. Okay. Interesting. And so then beneath the director, who is that?
Technically that's all the department heads.
Okay.
Like you have the camera department, and that's headed by the director of photography. Audio is, I don't know if there's a particular name for the person that's in charge of the audio department.
Okay.
I don't think there's usually just a couple of sound guys. Costume department, with under those, it's almost like a hierarchy of, I don't want to say hierarchy of needs, but hierarchy of
crew, maybe?
Crew, yeah.
Yeah.
Like under the director of photography, you'll have the grips who are in charge of setting up the lights and the sparks, or what I've heard them called. They're the people that are in charge of actually plugging everything in.
Oh, okay.
Which is weird that it's not the same thing. You have the camera teams, who are, their specialty is just the camera.
Oh.
And that's all they do. That's all their focus is. And especially on bigger sets that are union crews, it's very, very delineated. And you don't do something that's not your department. They're very strict about what people can and can't do.
Oh, yes, they are. Yeah. Unions are, there's people, well, I'm a liar. I did belong to a union for 5 minutes when I lived in Atlanta.
Oh, yeah.
And because I was looking for work. And I thought, well, if there's a union, let me join the union. And I did. I started to get phone calls. And it was interesting, but like I said, it was many moons ago in my younger years, and so that's interesting to me. Now, on average, for example, how many in a movie? How many camera people do you have?
It depends.
Okay.
A lot of movies shoot single camera.
Okay.
And so that means, like, we are in a 3-camera setup right now. We have a camera for me, a camera for you, and a camera that's on both of us.
Right.
A lot of movies and TV shows, they shoot single camera. So instead of having 3 different cameras going, they'll only have 1 camera at a time, and they'll focus on 1 shot at a time. They might have 2 if it's pointed in the same direction. Like, you might have a wider shot and a close-up shot at the same time. But generally speaking, a lot of times it's 1 camera at a time. And so if we were shooting this conversation on a film, we would probably start with the 2-shot, go through the entire scene several times, then we reset and light just for you. So we do the lighting, the audio, everything is just focused on you. And they film the entire scene from that angle multiple times. Then they go to the other side, and I've always heard it called flipping the world.
Okay.
Or a turnaround is another way to say it, because if the light's focused on you, they're not worried about lighting me.
Oh,
so they have to move all the lights around, and lights that might be like right here over my shoulder, that's going to be in the shot. So they have to move that, light me, and move the camera around as well. So they're literally moving everything on set to make each shot work.
That's so fascinating.
I think it's fun.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. I mean, and it's so outside of my world of doing things that it's like, okay. And so, so you've mentioned, so that's the camera work, and then, so let's talk a little bit more about films that use the green screen. What all is there? There was I can't tell. I'm not a movie watcher. I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
Yeah, and so I can't tell you the titles of. Ryan Reynolds did a movie. I'll pick on Ryan Reynolds. Did a movie where he was just kind of an average Joe. He's wearing like almost like office attire.
Free Guy.
I think so. That's it.
He's a video game character?
Yes.
Free Guy.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. And so what are you looking at there? Because obviously some of the shots are traditional, right? But then he kind of morphs into this other person, other thing. And so some of those are going to be animated, right?
Yes.
There is some animation in that. So how do you splice that?
Very carefully.
I love it.
Well, we're in kind of a weird we're in a weird spot right now. Let me talk about that first.
Okay.
I think you're thinking about when he's like the big muscle-bound guy.
Yes.
And they do basically Ryan Reynolds' head on him.
Yes.
So what they'll do is on set, they actually that actor that as that big muscle-bound guy, he's going through all the actions. He's doing everything that the Ryan Reynolds' head is going to be doing.
Got it.
And then they will go later on, and they will go back and they will record basically just a headshot of Ryan Reynolds doing that at the same time, doing the same actions, the same thing to put those together. And then I like special effects. I know some special effects. I know green screens. But that level of like blending those together, that is a level of complexity that is beyond my skill at the moment.
Okay.
But I know that they have to match the movement, they have to match the way the camera moves, and they have to be able to replace, like if the actor on set turns his head one way, you need to not see his chin when Ryan Reynolds' head is supposed to be straight. So there's a lot of technical issues that go into that, and a lot of that is the planning ahead of time. They have a visual effects supervisor that his job is to say, this is the end goal, this is what we need to accomplish it, and make sure we have all that. Yeah. And that's a complex job in and of itself. That's a person that's, these days especially, they're going to be on set for stuff like that because it's always huge. But at the same time, you might be surprised that, I'm going to kind of circle back around to that head thing in a second. A lot of times in movies, they use green screens without you probably even noticing. Like, did you ever see Parasite?
No.
It's a Korean film.
Okay.
It won the Academy Award in January. It won Best Picture International and Best Picture at the Academy Awards in January of 2020. Something about that movie is it's a cultural aspects of Korea. There's a rich family involved. When they filmed the house they were filming in was only one story. but they needed it to look like 2 stories. So they literally put a green screen on top of the house that's there, and you wouldn't ever notice it.
Wow.
It's one of those hidden special effects. Or another one that I really love is on Netflix is a series called, oh my gosh, it's about the founding of the FBI Behavioral Science Unit, Mindhunter.
Okay.
I think it's Mindhunter.
Okay.
Made by David Fincher. He loves doing what a lot of people call invisible special effects.
Okay.
Like when they're driving in a car, and people think about that. Put the green screen up, it looks like they're driving in a car, it's fine.
Yeah.
But he will also do things like, he will have this long, it's called a dolly. They put the camera on a set of rails, and it has wheels, and they're moving it backwards. But as you walk with this character, you start to see the rails on the ground, because that's just the shot they use. So they will digitally go in and it's very subtle, but it's just grass covering up that rail, so you don't ever notice it. It's those kind of hidden special effects that we always think of special effects as Marvel, flashy. That's part of it, yes, but there's also that part of that very subtle thing where it's just little bits that generate more realism to it.
Is this like James Corden when he does, I don't know if you ever saw James Corden, when he would do the entry to the intro to his, it was when he would pick up a celebrity. The very first one was George Michael. Yeah, and it was like, oh, there's my friend George, and he pops into the car. It's like, all right, George, where to? I don't know. Do you want to listen to some music? And they start, singing Freedom.
The karaoke.
Yeah, the karaoke. Yeah. And I know on a couple of episodes, you actually do see that there's the car in front. You see all the cameras. I guess that in some shots, maybe they X those out. Yeah. They delete those out.
Yeah.
That's very fascinating. Michael, sadly, I know it's amazing, but we are coming to the end of this episode.
Oh, wow. I had more stuff I wanted to talk about.
I know.
Artificial intelligence image.
Oh, right. Oh,
that's changing everything right now.
I was going to say, we're going to have you back on the show, and we'll specifically talk about that.
Absolutely.
Because that is very fascinating. Well, Michael, again, to all of you out there, thank you for joining us today, and thank you for joining us on this 2-part episode. We've come to the end of this, but if you want to learn more about the Film Club and about MassCom, contact Mr. Michael Head. What is your email?
mhead@epcc.edu. It's MHEAD at epcc.edu.
There you go.
I'll get there eventually.
Yes, yeah.
And we're looking for sponsors.
Yes, that's right, for the Film Club. And if you'd like to join the Film Club, that would be terrific. You can make your own little movie. A lot of fun. Michael, absolutely. Always a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me back. I appreciate it. Always a blast.
Yes, absolutely.
With George and everything.
Yes, with our little plant back here. Exactly. All right, everybody. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.